Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, may the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace and beneficence be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Once again, welcome and namaste. This is, of course, our Saturday noon class on Swami Prabhavananda's book, How to Know God, which is his translation and commentary and instruction based on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. We're in chapter 2, about midway through shloka 4. My Kindle says about page 709. What did yours say? Yours said, Brahmadas, what page?
It's on page 109, the last paragraph in
109,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's in the kind of burgundy colored book.
Okay, very good. Yeah, most of them should be approximately the same pagination.
Except for my book.
Yes, I know, Jeff.
Page 77, if anybody has this old paperback.
In our book, it's 114, Brother Shankara, where Dr. Balaji stopped.
Well,
it is 114 in the new books, which I bought from the center. So
well,
the Kindle is the Kindle is 109.
Kindle is,
So we're all on
Kindle
a different page, but as long as we're all on the same page on a different page.
Yes, exactly. Different books, but this, yeah.
So I think going forward, if we talk about which sloka we're on, that will be easier to find it. In this case, sloka 4.
Shloka 4, about midway through, Brahmadas says. It starts, the tyrant who enslaves.
Yes, I got it.
So before
That's where we
anybody, before Jeff begins his reading, is there anything that is left over from last week that you want to take up to make sure that you're on solid ground for going forward? All right, very good. Jeff, please begin.
All right. The tyrant who enslaves millions of people, the miser who hoards 1,000 times as much money as he could ever need, the traitor who sells his dearest friend, the murderer, the thief, the liar, and the addict, all these, in the last analysis, simply want to be safe and happy and at peace. We seek security in the accumulation of possessions by violence or fraud, or by the destruction of our imagined enemies. We seek happiness through sense gratification, through every kind of vanity and self-delusion. We seek peace through the intoxication of various drugs. And in all these activities, we display an energy of heroic proportions.
Note that in all these activities, though so very misdirected, we display an energy of heroic proportions. This is very important to what Patanjali develops later. What can we do with that energy of heroic proportions that is more auspicious, that is more productive, that is more of a grace and a beneficence to ourselves and to the world and to the rest of our fellow human beings, and for that matter, all beings. Anything else about this while we're stopped? All right, Jeff, please proceed.
That is the tragedy of sin. It is tragically misdirected energy. With less effort, we might easily have found union with the Atman had we not been misled by our ignorance. Ignorance, says Patanjali, creates all the other obstacles to enlightenment. More will be said about them in the commenting on the next aphorisms. They are the samskaras, the powerful tendencies which have already been referred to. These tendencies drive us to perform ever-recurring acts of sin or obstacle building, and so the obstacles grow automatically through the power of desire, pride, rage, and fear. The Gita describes this process. Thinking about sense objects will attach you to sense objects. Grow attached and you become addicted. Thwart your addiction, it turns to anger. Be angry and you confuse your mind. Confuse your mind, you forget the lesson of experience. Forget experience, you lose discrimination. Lose discrimination, and you miss life's only purpose.
Okay, would you read that over from the beginning, from the words the Gita? Then a little bit will be said about this.
Okay. The Gita describes this process. Thinking about sense objects will attach you to sense objects. Grow attached, and you become addicted. Thwart your addiction, it turns to anger. Be angry, and you confuse your mind. Confuse your mind, you forget the lesson of experience. Forget experience, you lose discrimination. Lose discrimination, and you miss life's only purpose.
All right, life's only purpose, according to Patanjali, and of course, according to everything we study, starting with the earliest Upanishads to the most modern sayings of Sri Ramakrishna, life's purpose is the realization of our innate, our inherent, our potential divinity, the manifestation of that divinity. And we do this by various means. But what is being said here is that if you allow your mind to be drawn again and again to sense objects, to those things outside of you that your senses are automatically drawn to, not only by their very nature, the nature of the sense organs and the which are in the mind, of course, not the instruments, and the samskaras that drive them. We have done this over and over. This is what the Swami said, is the tragedy of repetitive behavior. Even though we know if we stop and think, this is not going to satisfy me, so somehow we go ahead and do it anyway. And so Krishna says in this absolutely one of the most quoted verses from the Gita, that this is how we hook ourselves, how we allow ourselves to be hooked. So are there any comments from your own wisdom or experience, or your own concerns or questions about what's been said so far, about the power that is inherent in us, this heroic power, this power of heroic proportions, how it's misdirected, what happens if we redirect it, and what this major obstacle builder of addiction to sense objects is. Anything at all from anyone?
Brother Shankara, this is Haima.
Yes, Haima.
That misdirect energy is the one which is causing tragic experiences in the community in our today's world. This misdirected energy by misdirected people is creating, I think these 2 paragraphs need to be posted every corner of the street. I mean, when he read that, oh my God, this is exactly what's happening right now.
Yes, there's no doubt of it.
Exactly.
And this is what will be talked about
Yes.
not
It's so
this
sad.
Sunday, but the next Sunday.
Yes.
Brother, also,
The
there is,
disintegration.
I felt that sometimes, like, there are some people, if you imagine like a zombie, they only feel alive, and they only feel like living if they engage, or if they try to create like disturbance and violence. And it's like it's like a zombie turning from like death to like slowly life emerges in that. And at first it is so gross that they can only feel it if they try to create disturbance and disharmony and extremely sort of violent stuff that's only visible to them.
Yes, all of what you say is true, Reggie. But it is of no concern to us except as it disturbs society and to make sure that the laws are enforced. Otherwise, if we concern ourselves too much with that, we become entangled with it. And we must not. We must not become entangled with it. We must insist that the laws be enforced and that society be protected from these people.
But the more subtle aspect, what I was trying to think, is sometimes if we like introspect very, very deeply, very, very deeply, although like we, or maybe I myself am not directly influenced by those kind of motivations, but sometimes something of that very subtly creeps in.
Well, of course it does. We contain everything. We are the divine being. Every aspect of this infinite divine being is within us, including what in the Chandi, the Devi Mahatmyam, is called the Asuras. Both the gods and the demons exist within us. Yes, of course you'll find that dark side within yourself, Rajiv. And sometimes it's not so subtle. We'll lose our temper. We'll be tired, we'll be hungry, we'll be whatever it is that pushes us over the edge. And we'll lose our temper and be very unpleasant with someone else or to an animal. And it is regrettable, but it is just as clearly understandable as the sun appearing to rise because the earth turns. There's no mystery about these things. And we do contain these things. We do contain these contradictions. So what do we do? Well, Patanjali will tell us. We replace the lower samskaras with higher samskaras. And he calls this preliminary activity the yamas and the niyamas. We'll be getting to that. The yamas and niyamas are the first active practices, which is what the Swami said, that there would be more said about this in talking about the following shlokas. Thank you, Rajiv. You're absolutely right. It does exist in many people. We must not be entangled with them. And to the extent that it exists in us, we must follow whatever spiritual path will lead us from not practicing that darkness to practicing something that is more auspicious and more fruitful for our progress and our beneficence in the world.
I think until we can quit saying or start saying we and not they,
Yes.
really going to get what you're saying, Brother Shankara, about, it's not a matter of, we are all the same. We're just doing different things with what's available to us. And those of us who are not struggling on a survival basis, it's easy to sit and, say, oh, those people, when in fact, we really cannot do anything but keep our side of the street clean, deal with our own stuff, and admit that our stuff is the same as their stuff. It's just right this moment, we may have more resources to be comfortable so that we can take time in the morning and meditate, or we can do these classes and things. I mean, what a luxury, really, in this world.
Yes.
And I think it's so important for us to remember that we aren't different.
Mm-hmm.
We just have different stuff to deal with at the moment. And tomorrow, we may all be struggling with our primitive side that has all that. That energy comes from fear.
Yes.
That heroic energy comes from fear. And frankly, it's getting me right now. And I know better intellectually and spiritually, but it gets me. And so I do things that I know are not, improving my whatever. But I know while I'm doing it, but I'm escaping. That's what I'm doing to do it. And I know I'll come back and I won't keep doing that, but that's because I have these resources. Anyway, I'm rambling at this point, but
that's all of what you said is very straightforward and very useful. Saint Francis of Assisi said, and this underlines in capital letters, the we, W-E, he said, true love and compassion cannot flow from your eyes and lips until you too admit that you are capable of any act. I'll repeat that. This is Saint Francis of Assisi. True love and compassion cannot flow from your eyes and lips until you too admit that you are capable of any act. As Cindy said, right now, virtually everyone here, I'm sure, to one degree or another, is reasonably secure. That's why they're able to pursue their spiritual life. But as she also said, shall we imagine that is a condition that will necessarily persist? Oh no. And then what happens? So, and Cindy, there's just one thing I'd like to add. It isn't just from fear that heroic energy arises. It also arises from mumukshutvam, from yearning for the when you have mumukshutvam, this yearning for freedom, liberation, and that turns to shraddha, this dauntless courage and faith that is gestured to by the word shraddha. It doesn't translate well into English, but nevertheless, that energy does come from fear, yes. It can come from that. It can also come from this shraddha based in mumukshutvam, the yearning for freedom.
Brother Shankara?
Yes, dear.
It's obviously by God's grace alone that I had the time and the resources to meditate or get access to such spiritual wealth. But I also feel, based on, I guess, my own looking back reflection, that had I had exposure to this kind of spiritual thinking, then I might have become secure earlier, and I might have made the time to meditate. So sometimes I know it may be idealistic thinking, but I pray that if everybody gets some, I mean, like Brother Lawrence, I mean, you do your day-to-day thing and just keep your mind on God, or something like that can be brought forth in, because the general thinking is, oh, I'll do this when I retire, oh, I'll do this. But I feel that the, you know, earlier one gets on this path, at least starts, it's going to um, be helpful for humanity. But then, of course, it's ultimately God's place.
Swayam, you're absolutely right. One of the greatest things that we can do, it's not the greatest, but one of the greatest things that we can do is pray on behalf of others. Not specifically, not as if we're trying to tell them even indirectly through prayer what to do, but just pray for their awakening. Pray for there to be joy, true joy in their lives. You know, I have a practice called the Alleluias. Alleluia, all loved ones. Alleluia, all dear ones. A salutation to them, and a wish for their welfare and their just their general well-being, so that they don't have to struggle, so that they don't have to feel threatened and therefore become confused, misdirected, and even violent. Thank you, Swayam. Yes, the greatest thing we can do, according to Ramana Maharshi, the greatest service that we can render the world is to come to know who you truly are. Because then you become very much a part of the solution and no longer any part of the problem.
Thank you, Brother Shankar.
Anything else from anyone?
Yes, brother. This is Jeff. I'd like to pipe up to give you my personal history that touches on what Swami Prabhavananda was saying about how we're all seeking happiness, but some of us seek it in unsavory ways. I was a poster child of that for about 15 years, from 1975 to 1990, when I was a dedicated pothead. And I was wanting the pot to do it for me. It's like, make this okay. And the only heroic effort on my part was just keeping stuff in the house. That was a heroic effort. Otherwise, I was turning it over to the pot and saying, do this for me. And to some extent it did, but ultimately, of course, it did not. And the Gita talks about one of the steps of downgrading yourself by doing something like that is that you confuse your mind. And that's basically what happened to me. Although I was functioning, at the end of that 15 years, when I decided to quit, I realized that I was emotionally stunted, that I had not grown as a human at all in those 15 years. And so when I got sober, so to speak, I was a mess. And that was my obstacle. And it took about maybe 10 or 15 years again for me to get over that and, you know, really recover from that big mistake I made in my life. So,
well, Jeff, you can look back and say mistake, yes, but as Swami Vivekananda said at the end of his life, in this life I have made many mistakes. I am glad for each one of them. I celebrate all of them because they made me who I am today. So this is the thing about this episode, this period of self-medication. You were medicating with this marijuana, you were medicating with marijuana in order to ease the pain, and you wanted marijuana to solve all the problems. Well, until we come firmly to the conclusion that whatever it is that we're using as self-medication, and there are many varieties of self-medication, as we know, until we come to the conclusion that it isn't working, it isn't making things better, which in the Alcoholics Anonymous language is called hitting bottom. You well and truly hit bottom, and you decide, I'm not making very good decisions. I need to turn this over to a higher power. And that comes slowly and slowly, as you said, over another 10 or 15 years. There is a sense of recovery and Mother's blessings that your recovery continues steady, and that you remain on this path and with us, and that along with all of the rest of us, as Cindy was saying, that we learn that true joy and true sustenance comes from spiritual effort, seeking the Atman, as Swami put it earlier.
Thank you, brother. I also just want to let you and everyone know that during the end of that 15-year period, I discovered yoga and I started reading. And the first time I read Autobiography of a Yogi by Yogananda, I was high as a kite. And I still have my copy of that book that has a burn mark on the front cover from where I dropped a joint onto it. And
What a wonderful reminder.
And I treasure that book for that blemish on it that is, a symbol of how it helped me to start overcoming
Yes.
that addiction.
That I'm again so happy that you're being how you are with us now, Jeff, including this wonderful straightforwardness about what brought you here.
Well, sometimes the truth can be mighty entertaining, so and as well as instructive. So.
That is why there are so many wonderful songs out there. What do they say about those country and western tunes? 3 chords and the truth. And they get played in the jukeboxes all over the country.
Misery loves company.
Well, not only that, but we love to hear about people's triumph over misery.
Mm-hmm.
I think, Brother Shankara, Jeff's story is encouraging and inspiring to many of us or many people around you, Jeff. Maybe it's entertaining for few, but not for all. Not for all. It's very inspiring and very encouraging. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Haima. And remember, what we become is shared because there are not this we-ness that Cindy was gesturing toward, is the fact that we aren't really many. We are one. So when one of us changes in this auspicious direction, it provides a current. And this is what Ramana Maharshi meant when he said the greatest service you can offer to humanity is to come to know who you truly are. Because you stop being part of the unhappiness and the misery, and you become clear and pure radiance. And that, whether you ever say a word about it, is a great benefit to what Jung called the collective unconscious, which is the unity underneath the we-ness. Anything else from anyone before Jeff reads on?
I've also read Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda, and I also found out that was Steve Jobs' parting gift to all of his friends was like a bound copy of Autobiography of a Yogi. And my understanding is Steve Jobs also experimented with marijuana and psychedelics in his early days, but then as he got more into his career in creating Apple, he put those behind him. Is that true? And he got more into spirituality. I think that's the way it played out.
That seems to be part of the Steve Jobs story, yes. Thank you, Brahmadas. Anything else from anyone? All right, Jeff, please read on.
The obstacles are present to some degree in the minds of all who have not actually attained the highest samadhi, complete union with the Atman. Patanjali lists 4 conditions or degrees of ignorance as follows. The obstacles may be potential, as in the case of very young children, whose already existing tendencies will only manifest themselves in later life. This is said to be true also of those yogis who fail to concentrate with non-attachment and therefore become merged in the forces of nature. When they return, as they finally must, to mortal life, they will be confronted by those obstacles which caused their original failure. Then there are the spiritual aspirants whose minds still contain obstacles to enlightenment, but only in a vestigial form. Their samskaras continue to operate by the momentum of past karmas. The power of these samskaras is greatly diminished, and they do not present any serious danger as long as the aspirant is on his guard against them. Then again, the obstacles, or at least one group of them, may have been temporarily overcome through the cultivation of ignorance eclipsing thoughts and virtues. If we persevere in cultivating such thoughts and virtues, we shall gradually reduce the obstacles to the vestigial form which has just been described.
This is what is meant by the words replacing the lower samskaras with the higher samskaras. So would you read that last couple of sentences again, please, Jeff?
Then again, the obstacles, or at least one group of them, may have been temporarily overcome through the cultivation of ignorance eclipsing thoughts and virtues. If we persevere in cultivating such thoughts and virtues, we shall gradually reduce the obstacles to the vestigial form which has just been described.
In other words, they become dormant. Dormant. Please go ahead.
We're reprogramming our software.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Finally, the obstacles may be present in a fully developed form. This is the normal tragic condition of all ordinary, worldly-minded people.
Read that last sentence again also. This is the we that Cindy is talking about. And it deserves our compassion, not our judgment.
Finally, the obstacles may be present in a fully developed form. This is the normal, tragic condition of all ordinary, worldly-minded people.
Yes. Their ignorance is very dark and complete, or very nearly complete.
It's in full flower.
Yeah. And so what do we say? We say, may this be relieved, may this be relieved. Lord of the universe, have mercy on us. Any comments or questions before we go on to Shloka 5?
Well, I hesitate to bring this up, Shankara. And I read in the news this morning, which is probably a sure sign I should stop reading the news, that the Pope has put out an edict that all priests and nuns should remove pornography from their phones.
Oh my God.
And it to me, it speaks directly to what's in the Upanishads. When we agitate our lower nature, what do we expect?
Well, exactly. That's exactly it. When we agitate our lower nature by particularly those things that are so inauspicious as pornography, what can we expect? So the fact that the Pope found it necessary to issue this as an edict speaks so loudly to what he knows and to what those people who are struggling to maintain their celibate lives and their pure lives, they're struggling to try to be pure enough to really deserve to celebrate the Mass, then it's a very, very hard life. There's no two ways about it. Thank you, Almadas. And there's no reason you shouldn't have brought that up. It is definitely very much a point about this. Many monks and nuns are not very far away from being ordinary people in the sense that was just described. Anything else?
Brother, as I sort of am going on this path, I work daily, like at least on the weekdays, I work in the office, and it almost seems like by the end of the day, I need to take a bath. Like if I don't meditate, then the mind is like, so it's not that it's worldly, it's like it's in the quicksand, and you need to take it out of that.
Well, Rajiv, you're absolutely right. The people with whom we keep company, their samskaras, their energy, their tanmatras rub off on us. And when we have to go to the office and serve with people who are in this condition. So what is the solution according to Sri Krishna? See those people as the divine. In your mind, do not allow their samskaras in as much as possible. And the shield, the defense against this, is to see them as the divine being. Whether they know it or not is of no consequence. But cooperate with them, work with them, be with them. All work as worship, as Sri Krishna puts it. And Swami Prabhupada repeated this, I don't know how many times. Do your work as worship. And one of the things that is entailed in that, in working in an office, is to see the people that you're working with in their true original nature, rather than the manifest ignorance that comes with their current embodiment. This will provide some relief from the feeling, but I think everyone who's ever worked in an office who is a spiritual aspirant will know exactly what you mean. The tanmatras there are very worldly. So thank you.
The other aspect also is, brother, that there is something in my mind that tells me that this is your tapasya. If you don't do this, then let's say even if you end up going to like some place which is very pure and devoid of this, you will actually bring in all that stuff which is inside you and sort of make that place impure.
Well, this is why Chaitanya says, bathing in his name, that bath for weary souls. When we chant the name, when we do our spiritual practices, however we do them, we are giving ourselves a bath. We are washing away the worldliness. O Hari, stream down in moonlight on the lotus heart, opening itself to knowledge of thyself, opening its cup. O Hari, stream down in moonlight on the lotus heart, opening its cup to knowledge of thyself. O self, drown deep in the waves of his bliss. chanting his name continually, tasting his nectar at every step, bathing in his name, that bath for weary souls. So, precisely, Reggie, you need that bath when you have been in a place that is, in that sense, inauspicious and full of dark tanmatras, the tanmatras of tamas and rajas. Anything
But,
else?
yeah, I think this is the quote that applies to us in this group. Then there are the spiritual aspirants whose minds still contain obstacles to enlightenment, but only in a vestigial form. Would those obstacles be anger, jealousy, lust, and so forth? And vestigial, how do you define vestigial?
Of course, of course. Vestigial means you're no longer manifesting them actively. They're no longer part of your habitual behavior. They still exist there. You see them, you recognize them, particularly.
Right. They still exist in the mind, but we don't express them.
Yes,
That's
and
true.
you find them when you practice any kind of spiritual discipline, because those samskaras, those vestigial things, will try to assert themselves. Something will have happened to you during the day, and as you're sitting for whatever your spiritual practice is, that's something that happened to you during the day. That was unpleasant or somehow insulting, dishonoring to you, will come to you. And this samskara of anger will be there. And it may even turn to finding some fantasies of how to take revenge and so on.
Yes, that does happen. That's a problem.
So then immediately we must. No, do we try to repress this? No, that doesn't work at all. You can't say, you don't really exist. No, what you do is you turn your attention to your spiritual practices. You turn your attention to what deserves your attention, acknowledging that those vestigial tanmatra, those vestigial samskaras and their tanmatras do not deserve your attention. They'll just entangle you. And anger does not hurt the other person. Anger hurts you. So this is, anger, jealousy, envy, all these things. We just do our best to turn our face away from them and turn our face toward, as Swami Prabhupada used to say, don't worry about those things that you find here in the life of the West, the life of death and rebirth. Keep your gaze fixed on that shining light that you have seen in the east, and move toward it. Give everything a Godward turn and just keep moving toward that shining light that you have seen. Whatever your spiritual practices are that take you that direction. Because if we fight with our samskaras, they'll win. Anything else from anyone?
That's good advice. You mentioned something I really do struggle with, so thank you.
Okay.
Shankara, my personal experience has been, as we progress in meditation, calmness automatically enters into us.
Yes.
Any opposition, even you can see a murderer right in front of you, you won't get agitated because the calmness is already there for opposition. That's my personal experience over the years of doing meditation.
Yes, but that comes after some time, dear.
After some time, it takes long.
As Sri Krishna says in the Gita, sour toil at first.
Exactly.
Sour toil at first, then nectar.
It does take.
Then the calmness, then those very beneficent aspects of spiritual practice manifest.
Thank you,
We
Blush.
have to struggle in the beginning. So I
Yes.
really
Yes.
empathize with what Amadas said, with,
Yes,
with what Brahmadas said,
I truly agree with that.
with what Rajiv was saying. You know, these are,
Get there.
as
We will get there.
As Vivekananda said, if it weren't a struggle, it wouldn't be worth doing. But it's the only thing. If you apply your logical analysis to it, you see in the final analysis it's the only thing worth doing because the payoff is so great. Really do realize our divine nature more and more, as you say. It's as we are finding that this calmness comes. All of the other virtues come.
I have to interject here, and I'll probably be disagreeing with some of the wisest people who have ever lived. But I think that meditation alone is not enough for most people living in the world today. I think if you've got deep-seated crap that you haven't dealt with, that you can meditate 3 hours a day, and when you leave your meditation seat and something comes up and triggers you, and you haven't dealt with that on a totally different level, you're still going to respond the same way. I really think, I think meditation, beyond the divine, religious, spiritual part of it, but just as a tool, for settling the mind. I think it's just that. It's an add-on. It's an ingredient in the medicine bag. But it's not, it's clearly not enough just in itself for most people living in the world today. That's my opinion.
Well, dear, I cannot think of one of the wisest people in the world who would disagree with what you said. Otherwise, why would Jesus Christ have offered us the Sermon on the Mount? Why would he have offered us the parable of the prodigal child? We have to learn how to deal with these things. You know, Vivekananda said, first bread. First learn how to solve the problem of living in the world and keeping the wolf from the door, so that you're not in poverty and the wolf of poverty is not constantly agitating your mind. So first bread, then football. This is a metaphor for learning to play the game of life, the very complicated game of life. First bread, then football, then the Gita. And this is exactly the message of Swami Ranganathananda's Divine Grace. He doesn't mention this little aphorism of Swamiji's, but the whole of Divine Grace is organized around that exact point. First bread, then football. First solve the problem of not being agitated by want. Meet those Maslow's hierarchy basic needs. Then football. Then learn how to play the game of life so that the game of life does not master you, that you master the game of life. And each of us will find our own way. There's no cookie cutter approach to that. None. You each have to find your own way how to master the game of life. Then the Gita, then you can understand what Krishna is saying in the Gita, because your mind is not constantly agitated by want and conflict, a sense of, you've heard all this before. So that's so very important. So Cindy, as I say, I cannot think of any of the wise ones who would disagree with what you said. Anyone who says meditation alone is going to do it, well, they're not really, I can't think of one who preaches that. Certainly not the Upanishads.
They're probably selling a meditation course.
Amadas, you always go for the heart of the matter.
Yeah, I was just going to say that we Americans tend to extract what we think is the essential ingredient, like we'll take an herb and decide what the essential chemicals are and say, here's the pill. And we've done that now with Hatha Yoga, extracting it from India and calling it yoga when really it's just Hatha Yoga. And then to Cindy's point, it's been done with meditation. Now they're calling it mindfulness, and they're teaching it in corporations, you know. But they're removing it from the context. What we have here in Vedanta is the whole package, the 4 yogas and how we work those 4 yogas and what the goal is.
Thank you, Jeff. Exactly. Exactly. And we do not need to entangle ourselves with those people who are selling something. Nothing is for sale here. It's only on offer. It's only in the sense of an invitation. Nothing for sale. Anything else from anyone? Okay, dears, let's read this next aphorism, which is, of course, I think it's going to be, but anyway, you go right ahead, Jeff.
It's actually 2 aphorisms. We get 2 for the price of 1. Not that we're selling anything.
Right.
Sloka 5. To regard the non-eternal as eternal, the impure as pure, the painful as pleasant, and the non-Atman as the Atman, this is ignorance. And Sloka 6. To identify consciousness with that which merely reflects consciousness, this is egoism.
Okay, please repeat those 2.
Okay, number 5. To regard the non-eternal as eternal, the impure as pure, the painful as pleasant, and the non-Atman as the Atman, this is ignorance. Number 6. To identify consciousness with that which merely reflects consciousness, this is egoism.
Okay, this is exactly what is meant by the word discrimination. When we realize that the non-eternal, it isn't that it doesn't exist, but that it is not the point. It arises and passes away. That's the definition of non-eternal. No matter how long it takes, even the universe itself, to regard the non-eternal as eternal, the impure as pure, the painful as pleasant. And we'll see that painful, even our pleasurable activities, sense activities, contain pain because of our attachment or our desire to repeat them. And the non-Atman as the Atman, this is ignorance. So to dispel ignorance, our own ignorance, we must learn the meaning of the word discrimination, which has been translated here as what deserves my attention. Because as the yogis tell us, where your attention goes, your life energy goes. So then, to identify consciousness with what merely reflects consciousness, this is egoism. Any comments or questions?
Hello, brother. This is Stephen.
Yes,
Namaste.
Steve. Namaste, dear.
I wanted to you about this because on the one hand, I thought that, Vedanta is teaching us not to identify with our thoughts, for instance. But, when I heard the reading of that aphorism and it said pure with impure, and then I immediately thought about, well, pure thoughts, impure thoughts. And that we try to, categorize our thoughts a lot that way. And yet, I mean, I know based on my own, being in therapy, things like that, there's a lot of intrusive thoughts and I guess you'd say junk thoughts. And so I would just kind of wondered if you could comment on that, this whole notion, pure, impure, in relation to our thoughts.
We should never become attached to our thoughts of any kind, pure or impure. Why? Because they arise and pass away. We will have higher and higher thoughts as time goes on. So if we're attached to even the pure lower thoughts, those that we regard as pure, if we become attached to them, then we get stuck there. We don't move higher. But the pure thoughts are better than the impure thoughts. The lower samskaras of impure thoughts are to be replaced by higher samskaras of pure thoughts. And so this continues. We then see, oh, these that I thought were perfectly pure thoughts, they contain a seed of attachment or whatever it is that, and so we replace those with yet higher thoughts until finally the mind itself becomes pure. And there are no longer any impure thoughts there that own there. And this is because the mind has become filled with the thought or thoughts of the divinity, seeing everything as the divinity. And then Sri Ramakrishna says at this point, the pure mind and pure thoughts, the pure thoughts are the same as pure consciousness. So no, of course we must not be attached to any thought, because a thought is something that arises and passes away. It's simply a gesture toward the truth. It is not the truth itself. The truth itself is beyond thought and speech. It is told to us, and this is a great mystery. It's regarded as a great mystery in every spiritual tradition. The real truth is told to us in silence. And because it's told to us in silence, we can't quite exactly put it into words what it is that I know now through experience within the silence that I didn't know before. So we'll try to put it into words, but words are inherently, language in itself is inherently frail. It cannot really carry the weight of our realization. And our realization comes little by little until finally there is no barrier to the full realization. But in the meantime, it comes little by little in this silence, and the silence is within. So no, we must not be attached to our thoughts, but we must prefer the pure thoughts to the impure thoughts. Does that make sense, Stephen?
Yes, brother, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for asking the question. It's right on the money. That's exactly where we are. Anything else from anyone?
Hi, Om Shankaraji.
Oh, Bala, so good to hear from you.
It's such a wonderful discussion. I'm just, because I think, of course, none of us, we are attending these classes, we are exposed to it. All we have to thank Bhagavan for giving this opportunity.
Yes.
But the sad part of it, a lot of people don't have the chance or the opportunity to get exposed to this kind of, teaching. And also it is the societal problem in the sense, even though the people who are supposed to teach this kind of knowledge, they are not teaching properly. And this is what it is, because I still believe, especially in this country, people are very good, because the only way you can think about, I think it's last year or year before, the total amount of donations that the people gave to charities is $750 billion. This is all from the local people. So there is dharmic way of thinking and all those things, but the people are not being guided by the right way for the people who is supposed to teach them. And that is one thing. The second thing is regarding this, impure and pure thoughts. Vivekananda gave very simple explanation. Think about any thought. If it is leading you towards God or to your goal, that's a good thought. Anything that's taking you away from that, from the divine, is not a good thought. This is what he puts it. And actually, the other thing we should start thinking about every thought, there are three aspects of it, a subject and an object, and they both are illumined by the consciousness. So that the only reality is that consciousness, both the subject and the object, they're all mithya.
Very well said, all of it. Thank you, Balaji. What could be added to that? Yes, it's consciousness that is the truth. And as this last aphorism said, if we confuse with that which merely reflects consciousness with consciousness itself, this is egoism. This is thinking that we the embodied being, is what is meant when we hear the words, thou art that. The embodied being is something that comes and goes. That is infinite, eternal, and changeless. So if we think that what is meant by thou art that is this jiva, this breathing thing that is the dwelling place of our divine presence, we think that is the thing itself, then that's egoism. And we're easily tricked into egoism by our genes. We'll talk about that again the next time we talk about John Dobson's The Equations of Maya, how our genes cheat us. Anything else from anyone? Thank you, Balaji, as always.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Shankara,
Yes, dear.
I've never been more clear that I can't do this by myself. I need what we are doing right now. Just like I need air, just like I need water.
Oh, amen,
So,
amen, amen, Amadas. We all do, otherwise why would we be here?
right.
We all treasure this, each in our own way. And is all of it congenial? Of course not. Is all of it according to what seems to be the truth within our own minds? Of course not. It can't possibly be. But what is really binding us together here? Not the words, not the blah, blah, blah. The sense of togetherness, the sense of we-ness, as Cindy said,
Us.
the sense of us.
Holy company.
Holy company, yes, indeed, holy company. And that is what is meant by thou art that. That holy company is that, and it is what is underlying all this. And Jeff mentioned recovery. You too, Amadas, in the past have mentioned recovery. These 12-step programs are a great, great, great application of applied spirituality to this sense of we're in this together. And it's only through being in this together can we rescue ourselves. Why? Because through that we begin to recognize what in the 12-step programs is called the higher power.
Yes.
So, anything else from anyone? Thanks for piping up, Amadas. Okay, dears. Dearly, dearly beloved, a flower at your feet for each one who comes to your open door. A flower at your feet for each one who stands by your open door and says, come to me, offering to break this world's chain that binds us down to ignorance, suffering, and death. A flower at your feet for each one who takes the path that you have struck through this, your jungle world. Om, Amen. And I'll just comment, those who stand by that open door and say, come to me, and make that offer, they're capable of delivering on that promise. These are the great teachers, the incarnations. They are capable of doing, which is what is meant by liberation, by salvation, call it what you will. They can deliver on that promise if we come to them. So, a flower at your feet for each one who takes the path that you have struck through this, your jungle world. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace and beneficence be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai, Durga, Durga, Durga.
Durga, Durga, Durga.
May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. May we go forward. May we be always in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father. O Lord, take my hand. Any final thought from anyone?
On a mundane matter, brother, I just want to let you know I'm going to be traveling next week and the week after. My attendance will be spotty. I'm not sure when I'll be able to attend and when I won't. But I'm going to try to attend next Saturday, and I'll have a friend with me. So.
Okay, well, as pleases your great and wonderful self, sir, I'm sure that whatever you're doing is necessary and or pleasant or both. So If you're not able to read next week, well, we'll find a way to do it, but I hope you can. And we'll start again by reading shlokas 5 and 6.
Right.
Okay. Anything else from anyone? Any final thought? Well, as always, dears, this is the dearest way for us to be with one another, is in these classes where we share with one another, where we encourage one another. And as I always say, it doesn't matter whether you say anything or not. Those who do share, wonderful. We're grateful. But we're also grateful to everyone who never says a word. Because your energy, this we-ness, this us-ness that has been spoken of, it's all there in the current of that. So until tomorrow morning, when we'll talk about Halloween and the fall festivals and Mother Kali, but particularly about Halloween and Mother Kali. So, anything else from anyone before we go? All right.
I've officially adopted the pronoun us.
Okay, good.
My new pronoun is us.
All right. Yes. We has met the beneficence, and it is us.
As we say here in the South, all y'all.
Yeah.
Or your mom and them.
Right, exactly. You know,
Mhm.
all right, dear. Until next time. Tomorrow morning, if you decide to join us. Jai Shri Ramakrishna Jai.